A very special thanks to all of our sponsors listed above here. If you guys have not given them a check out, go give them a check out. Their stuff is absolutely amazing. Hey everybody, welcome back to Sparr's Outdoors, and today we are going to be talking about crappie fishing. Everybody's been wanting to see this video. Everybody's been asking me about it. I've been talking about it a lot. I'm going to be doing a seminar on it, and it's going to be the art of crappie fishing, okay? And the reason I call it the art of crappie fishing is because it's a science. It's a science that a fisherman has to figure out to be consistent on catching those crappies. White crappies and black crappies are very elusive fish, but once you figure them out, they are some of the funnest fish that you will fish for. Absolutely taste amazing. And let's just get right into talking about the art of the crappie fishing. So we're going to start off by talking about different times of year, right? Let's just go right to the winter crappies, okay? In the winter, you'll find those crappies. A lot of guys will fish the canals and cuts, and I do the same thing, fish the canals and the little cuts and the off branches of Lake St. Clair and inland lakes. It's gonna be the same type of thing, okay? You're going to want to find a little bit deeper water, and they're going to be around docks and structure, and they're going to be in that first 1 to 7 foot of water, depending on how deep it is. Now, if you're in a canal that's only 5 foot deep, they're going to be in that top 1 to 2 foot of water 90% of the time in the winter, and that's where they're going to feed. In the wintertime, you'll get the bigger schools congregated together, okay? They're like congealed. The bigger schools, the congealed tight schools, you'll find in the wintertime more than you will any other time of the year. They stay in them small, tight, or I should say large, tight schools, because crappies are a schooling fish, especially in the wintertime. You're going to find those crappies in big numbers under the ice. That's where you're going to get your big numbers of crappies when you're fishing for them, is underneath the ice. But you're going to get your big numbers in the spring and in the fall too, and I'm going to explain that here soon. But while we're on this winter topic, I want to talk about strategies, techniques, tips, and tricks that's going to help your success. When you're picking a spot to go fish for crappies, a lot of people will fish for bluegills, right? And I'm one of those guys. Myself, I'm one of those guys. You'll run into some crappies, right? And then you'll get a few crappies, and you'll have a nice mixed bag of bluegills and sunfish and crappies, and you'll get your panfish limit, right? Especially down on Lake St. Clair. And this happens on Lake Huron too, in the canals and cuts up towards Caseville area and the marinas and little marinas, and it's always around dock structure or spiles, okay? Now, when you get out onto the lake, your structure is going to be your weed beds, whatever you can find, rock flats, humps, anything, anywhere there's structure on the lake in the wintertime is going to hold those crappies. But when you're in a canal, mainly you're fishing for bluegills, and you accidentally run across some crappies, and then you start crappie fishing, right? You change up your techniques and you try to crappie fish, and you're fishing up high. A lot of guys don't understand this, and this is where I'm going to teach you guys some things. Like I said, that in the wintertime, if you find crappies, they're in a big school, trust me. And you're going to find all those crappies within that first, say it's 10 feet deep, they're going to be within the first 1 to 5 foot of water, absolutely. Absolutely, that's where they're going to be. You'll find some of them fish down low, but your big schools, the ones that are going to be feeding the most, the bigger, tighter congealed pack of crappies, school of crappies, right, are going to be between 1 and 5 foot and 10 foot of water. Now, if you're in a canal that's 3 foot deep, they're going to be just underneath the ice. That's how they go. They're always running and feeding up high in the wintertime. That's just the way they go. Now, you can change up techniques to catch these crappies. When you're ice fishing for these crappies, you're going to want to do that slow drop I've talked about many times, and that is because crappies feed up. Rarely ever will they feed down. They'll chase a bait. Don't get me wrong. They'll chase a bait and grab it. But if it's sinking too fast, they're just going to sit there. If it's slowly dropping past them and it gets past them, they'll chase a little bit of grab it. Most of the time, they see it coming. They'll swim up underneath that bait as it's coming down, and they'll open their mouth and grab it right in front of their face. They don't like to really attack, especially in the wintertime, okay? Best baits you're going to use are going to be the small plastics. You guys hear me talk about thumpums all the time. very small tungsten jig. The slower the tungsten, or the slower the drop, the better. So the smaller the tungsten, the better. The slower the drop, the better. The smaller the bait, the better. You're going to get the slower drop as you drop your rod tip down. Watch that line to kink up. Set that hook. Don't yank it like this because they're paper mouths. You're going to rip it right through their mouth. Just kind of lift that rod and pull them up. Now, if you're talking inland lake fish, it's the same thing. You're going to want to do that slow drop. They're still going to be in that first top half of the water column, absolutely. So you're going to want to do that slow drop. And, you know, in the wintertime, water temperature is real cold. They're not going to want to move as much as they are in the spring or in the summer. So that slow drop is your ways that you're going to catch more crappies, absolutely. My favorite colors are greens, chartreuse, you know, the chartreuse and black combo. There's different, when I say greens, there's different colors of greens. My favorite is chartreuse, or like that. It's like that monkey puke green kind of look. Crappies love that color. Orange and pinks, whites. They're all good colors for crappies. But if I had to pick one bait to go crappie fishing with, I'm gonna definitely pick like a green chartreuse head into a black body. That's one of my favorites, or a darker body, like the Thumping Plastic's got that smoking hot. That's a great time. That's a great wintertime bait. Absolutely, it's a great bait. The Quicksand's a great color. Run that on same thing. I'm gonna have a chartreuse head with that Quicksand body, and it's just an amazing color to use. Them are my two go-tos, but if I had to pick one, it's going to be a dark bait. It's going to be a chartreuse and green. That's a crappie's favorite colors, and that's through the whole season. That's through all year long. So the whites and they all play factors. Don't get me wrong, and I'll explain this later in this video. Right, this is the art of crappie fishing, so it's going to be a little bit of a long video, but it's going to give you guys a lot of tips, tricks, and tactics. It's going to put some fish in your box. So in the wintertime, you want to fish them slow. You want to drop that rod tip. I mean, I ain't got my ice rod with me, but you're going to want to drop that rod tip as slow as you possibly can. I'm just going to bend this and use this as an ice rod. So you're going to want to, the line's kinked up here. You're going to want to drop that rod tip literally. Just about like that, okay? When that line slacks up, okay? When that line slacks up like that, that's when that fish got it. You just kind of lift up. That slack, you got to watch for that slack in the line. That will help your success on crappie fishing. And don't look for the slack above the hole. Look in the hole and watch for the line to kink up in the hole when you're ice fishing, and you're going to hook more crappies. The structure they're going to be around in the inland lakes we were just talking about is going to be the weeds, the vegetation, anything that's held up through the winter. Those high weeds, they'll die down, but there'll still be a weed structure, and they'll be low. But them crappies are going to hang off the top half of that, right? They're going to hang on. They're going to hang above those weeds. And if there's anything that goes up 6-7 feet, which there is in inland lakes and even on the big lakes, when those weed structures right in the wintertime stand up, them crappies will set high in those weeds. And it's like anywhere they fork off, there'll be a crappie set in every one of those little forks off that weed, you know. So as that bait drops, they wait and they grab it as it comes to them. So you want to find the structure. All year long for crappies, you want to find the structure. Now let's get out of the winter. Ice starts to go out. You know, you're getting into that end of March area, that pre-spawn, right? In the pre-spawn area, because you know, spawn for crappies, they like the water temperature to be anywhere between 60 and 68. My favorite time to crappie fish when you're catching a ton of fish is when they're spawning, right? Okay, and that 60, like 62ish. You're going to pound on crappies if you find the crappie holes, and I'm going to explain how to find these crappie holes too. So now let's talk about this pre-spawn fishing. Pre-spawn, they're still going to be running deep. The water's still cold. They're staying in the deeper waters. You know, they're staying in the deeper water columns. They're going to leave those canals that they were in the wintertime where it was shallow. They come in there just to feed on those bait fish that are in those shallow waters in the canals. Then they go to deeper water. Now, when you find a canal that's deep, they'll tend to stay there all winter into the pre-spawn. They'll stay right there, and they'll stay there all the way through the whole summer. They'll stay right there in them deep waters, right? Because it's deep. They don't have to move their structure. They're in those canals to spawn. The shallow canals are not in there to spawn. Okay, they're going in there to feed. They're not going in there to spawn. They're because they go to deeper water early on. After ice out, they start heading to the deeper canals, back out onto the lake. Don't get me wrong, you can still catch crappies in shallow water. If that's where the crappie, you're not going to get your big numbers consistently in shallow water. I promise you that. Not in pre-spawn. You're going to want to fish Deeper water, you're going to want to fish like that mid-water column pre-spawn. You're going to want to fish slow, a little bit faster than ice fishing. You know you can't ice fish no more, so you can't set right on top of them and drop it down real slow unless you're off the end of a dock, which is still a great way to catch those crappies all year long. That slow drop's going to work. It's going to work all year long if you're in deeper water fishing off a dock. Now, if you're fishing on land and you don't have dock access and you're trying to pitch out there and you got to pitch it to them, the retrieve's got to be slow. You got to so use light jigs so they don't just sink right to the bottom, and fish it slow. Fish it under a bobber, pull it back to you. This time of year, like right now, you're going to want to fish these crappies the exact way I'm telling you. You're going to want to use a small profile bait. You're going to want to fish it very slow, and you're going to want to fish the mid-water column. It's pre-spawn, right? So you're going to want to fish that mid-water column. Absolutely fish the mid-water column. Now, when you're fishing it with a bobber, don't wait for that bobber to go under to have a bite. You got to know your bobber. Rocket bobber is a good bobber to use, but if you don't know what that is, just any bobber will work. But as you're jigging that jig back to you, watch for that bobber to just move a little bit, or watch for that bobber to go left or right or forward or back. Just watch for that bobber to make the slightest movement, and there's a crappie's got that bait in their mouth. So you just kind of lift up, put the pressure on them, and then start reeling. You'll have that fish in your bucket. Absolutely. Pre-spawn's a great time to fish for crappies. The bigger numbers they're gonna structure. If you know where the structure is, that's where you're gonna catch your fish. Crappies are all about structure. They have to have structure. You're not gonna. I mean, you could. I've did it myself. Accidentally run into a school of crappie that's swimming by real quick on a flat and nailed them. And I'm not saying that you won't catch crappies on flats, because you will. You can catch crappies on flats. But to consistently catch crappies, you're going to want to find structure. Absolutely. Hands down. I don't care what anybody says. I crappie fish a lot. You have to have structure to catch crappies. Flats, you can catch them. I can't say you have to have it to catch crappies, but to consistently catch crappies, you have to have structure. So let's get right into the spawning now, okay? When that water temperature is between 60 and 68 degrees, I like to go all year for crappie, but to pound on crappies, my favorite time of year is when they're spawning. And you're going to find those fish, when they're spawning on the structure, as I'm going to keep saying it. Structure, 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 structure. Now, when they're spawning, a crappie will spawn deep, okay? They will spawn in 10 to 20 foot of water if the water's clear. Now, if you got stained water, it's going to be 1 to 7 feet deep. That's where you're going to get them. And they're mainly around the spots that I fish, typically here in Michigan, you're going to catch your spawning crappies in 1 to 7 foot of water, right? Now we got spots that we fished that are 17 foot of water, and they're good spots, but they're hit or miss too. You can go there and have a time of your life. They can spawn there one year, and the next year they will not be there. That's just how that goes, because there's spots close by that are shallower water, and the water is murky, so they're gonna head to that shallower water to spawn up the cuts and the marinas. The one marina I fish is about 10 foot deep, 11 foot deep. Around all the docks anyways where I fish. I mean, out in the middle is a little bit deeper, but that 1 to 7 foot is the best. Now, the marina that I pound the crappies in is 10 foot deep, but I'm still fishing, even it's a muddy water system, but the water can get pretty clean in there. I mean, not crystal clear, but you can see down 3-4 foot. That's pretty clear water, so them crappies, they'll still spawn in that 10 foot, but they love to be by them docks at all times, right? So tons of structure. I mean, hundreds of docks, so they got tons of structure. Now, picking which dock, okay? You don't know until you got to target these fish. So they could be on this dock one day, this dock the next day, and the next dock the next day. But them schools stick together, but not like you do in the winter. You're going to have different schools of fish in different areas. You're going to catch white and black crappie at that same time of year. As soon as that water temperature hits about 60 degrees, the whites and blacks, you'll start catching them together. And you'll start catching them in that mid-water column to the upper half of the water column, absolutely. Now, fishing for those, if you can fish off the end of the dock, still doing that slow drop, watching for that line of kinks, a great way to do it. Vertical jigging, not bouncing off the bottom. You'll get fish, but you ain't going to get them like you are fishing that top half. So when I say vertical jigging for crappies, I'm not talking about jigging like this. I'm talking about twitching the jig down, twitching the jig back up. Twitching the jig, you're vertical, right? You're up and down because you're off the dock. But you're just twitching it up and down, watching for that line to go left or right, or feeling that thump, okay? That's where you're going to get your crappies. Now there's a different way you can catch them. One of my favorite ways to catch them is pitching off the end of a dock. I'll pull my rod tip back, I'll grab my jig, and I'll pull my rod tip back. Let me unwrap it here. Okay, so I'll just grab my rod, I'll pull that line, hold my bail open, hold my line with my finger like this, I'll hold that bail open, that line can't go nowhere, so I release it and I'll pitch it right up to the end of the dock. I'll stand at one end, I'll pitch it to the other, and I'll let it slowly drift back to me. Usually within that first 1 to 3 foot, my line will start going sideways, and I know I got me a nice slab on there. So that's the way you want to fish. That's my favorite way to fish. Now, you could also cast small crankbaits at them. Absolutely, you can cast small crankbaits at them. I've done it many times. Small crankbaits, little tiny hair jigs like these right here that Banger hand tied jigs made. Little hair jigs like this, they work the same. You know, casting them, cast it out, and with these you can let it, they're such a light jig, you can let these drift back to you. You know, just these little jigs like this here, made by Banger. And you guys, as you heard me talking about my favorite colors for crappies, there was a couple there, but here's my favorite. This is going to be one of my favorites. I haven't used this yet, but I know I'm going to pound crappies on it. You'll see videos. It's this jig right here, okay? Got that chartreuse head, green with the black in it. Chartreuse and black right through the tail with some flake in there. So I'm going to pitch that out, and I'm gonna cast it, close my bail, hold my rod tip up, and let this sink. And I'm going to watch for that line to go sideways, or I'm going to feel that thump. And I'm going to slowly retrieve as it comes to keep that bait as it's sinking to keep coming up, you know, because I don't want to be anywhere below that, you know, that top half of the water column. I don't want to be on the bottom at all. Now the bluegills, they'll stay down low, they'll stay up high, they go everywhere. So do the crappies, but the main bite you're going to get from crappies is going to be that top half of the water column. Absolutely, all year long. Now, we're going to talk about this time of year, like right now into the spring crappies that I've been waiting for so long. And these undertowed tungstens here, these undertowed jigs, they make them in so many different colors. I'm just going to pull one out here. This one here, you can see the detail on these things. Absolutely got a nice clear coat on them. Absolutely amazing. You can run these baitless. Oop, I just dropped it. You can run these baitless, okay? Tiny jig like that. You can run these baitless, and they'll smoke them. They will smoke them. But I'll tip them with a thumping plastic, absolutely. And they've got so many different colors. Now the bigger undertow tungstens, like this guy here, right there, I might fish him completely baitless. You know, just drop it down, let it sink, and let the crappies grab it, and just let the rod tip do the work. So, now if you're bobber fishing for these guys, right, you know, a lot of people are bobber fishing these crappies right now. The water's still super cold, but as the water warms up, you're not going to have to use those bobbers, you know. But bobber fishing is a very successful way to get crappies, especially you can float a minnow underneath with just a small size 8 hook them in right through the nose, let them swim around, you'll get crappies. But I like using artificial baits. I have way more success on them. A lot of guys like using minnows because they think, you know, I'm going to catch a bunch of crappies on minnows, which you will. Hook them through the back's a good way, get them swimming like this. They will absolutely smoke a minnow under a bobber. It's a great way to fish. For the guys that don't know much about crappies, that's an easy way to catch crappies. Even in the winter, all through the year, minnows will catch crappies, but plastics and artificial will outperform those minnows. I've proved it time and time again, and I'll prove it again this year. Small tungsten jigs, plastics, absolutely killer technique for crappie fishing. It's coming up. You're going to want to be prepared. Hopefully this video can help you out. That dock fishing is going to be good. Fishing in those canals are going to be great. It's all going to be good. The crappie fishing it's coming up. So I wanted to do this video before crappie fishing gets hot, so these tips and tricks can help you guys out. So when you're pitching that jig down to the end of that dock, watch for that line to move. Don't wait for the thump every time, because a lot of times you won't feel it. You'll just watch your line move and that crappie's on there. Same thing when you're bobber fishing. You're going to watch that bobber move, that crappie's on there. Sometimes they'll sink that bobber. Don't get me wrong. 9 times out of 10, they're just going to quick grab onto that bait, and as soon as they realize something's up, they're going to release, and you're not even going to know you had a bite. So watch for that bobber to just do the smallest thing, and just till you feel that little thud on there, then set the hook a little bit and start reeling. Don't yank hard. Can't stress enough, don't yank hard. You will rip it right out of their lips. Absolutely. And then that fish flutters, and it kind of spooks the school for a minute. Watched it happen time and time again. Now in the summertime, let's talk about these summertime crappies when the water's about 68 degrees and higher and the sun's beating down. Them crappies, they start slowing down. You'll see a ton of them. They'll start setting right up underneath the docks. You'll see the crappies setting there. They will bite, but they don't like to move. It's almost like a wintertime thing to them. They get overheated just like we do. That sun's beating on them, and they'll set underneath those docks and just peek their nose out waiting for a bait fish to swim by you. It's a good time to target them fish, though. You just got to be real careful. You walk down that dock, they shoot down, and they're gone. And they'll be gone for hours before they come and set back up. Or they'll shoot underneath the dock and set in the middle of the dock. You can't see them. And you're trying to fish them, but they know you're there. They see you, okay? When a fish sees you, any fish, but mainly, you know, a crappie's such an elusive fish. When he sees you, it's going to be hard to catch that fish. You can catch him, you can entice the bite, but you got to make sure, like if I see a crappie set in the summertime setting up underneath a log or setting by a dock, I'm going to stay back and I'm going to pitch my jig past and I get them every time. Or I'll come on the back side of the dock, drop my jig down right in front of it, knowing that crappie's right there, and I watch for my line to move, and then I get that crappie. So, the best choice of bait colors I'm going to tell you guys right now is going to be the chartreuse and blacks, the whites, the blue and whites, the pinks and the oranges. Absolutely, hands down, with any type of bait you're going to use for crappies. Now, like I said, when that water is right about 62 degrees, that's feeding frenzy time for crappies. They go on aggressive mode and they'll hit about anything that swims by them. Now, before we end this video, I want to talk a little bit about line selection too. In the wintertime, you're going to want to use that high visibility line so you can see that line kink up inside your ice hole, right? You're definitely going to want to see that line kink, so you're going to want to use a high vis yellow or green. That's my favorite. That's my go-tos. Then after ice, I go to a 4-pound and I go clear. So that will make 100% difference in the way you catch fish too. The high visibility line you really don't want to use during the spring months. You know, you can use them in the pre-spawn, you can still get away with it. But in murky water, it really don't matter. But I just tend to stick to this right here, 4-pound mono. That way, if you hook into a bass or a pike, you got a chance to get him in without busting your line. So that's another thing. Line color means a lot during the ice. You want to have that high visibility line. Line color means a lot during the summertime and then the spawn time. You don't want them to see your line. You want to see that lure coming by, right? And then you guys already heard me talk about the loop knot. You guys know, tie that loop knot. Get away from all the snaps, all the extra stuff you don't need. Tie that loop knot. Guaranteed, 100%. These tips will change your success on the water. Good luck out there, guys. I hope these tips and tricks helped you guys out. I'm not going to give all this away. I give you guys enough right here to go and put a bunch of crappies in your box. I want to save some for the seminar. I hope this video helps you guys out. And I'm going to keep giving you guys my tips, my tricks, and my tactics. And thank you guys for watching Sparr's Outdoors.